Well, hello and welcome back, everybody, to another episode, actually, the final episode of the Your Blank What Now podcast. My name is Marci Nettles, and I am your host. And it has been such an honor, a pleasure, and a responsibility that I have just really enjoyed over the past 3 years. This being the final episode at 150 episodes. Started with the first one, September 1st of 2021, and the final one that will be dropping the last Wednesday of 2024 in September. So 3 years time. It's been quite the journey. I am super excited to have my husband here with me, Dr. Dondee Nettles. He has been here with me through this whole journey, and I'm super excited for him to actually interview me on this final episode of the Your Blank What Now podcast with Marci Nettles. So thanks for being here with me today, babe.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have missed it. And it's my absolute honor because this is just it's a great privilege and honor to be part of episode one when it actually, as soon as you hit that record button and started recording that episode, and now to kind of wrap up the bookends of this 3 year, 150 episode amazing podcast. It's just been an absolute honor and privilege to help encourage you to actually put out a podcast and letting you or try to convince you that you were very capable of it. Your voice needed to be heard. And then now, as you kind of close down this twilight season of it, for bigger and better things that are happening in your life. So it's my absolute honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you have meant to me and this show as we've gone on this journey. Because we started it out with episode one is, the birthing of the show, right? And you had so much to do with that. I mean, you are the one that really encouraged me and told me, Marci, you've got a voice, you have things to say. You should be doing a podcast. And of course, I gave that pushback because a lot of the times, What Now Tribe, I'm sure you'll recognize this in yourself at points, but when you don't know or understand how to do something, you push back. Yet, we still got there. We still got there. And if you want to know all the reasons why we started this show, I mean, really go back and listen to episode one because it's really got the nitty gritty, breaking down the details of where we were at when we were walking and the download that God gave me about these breakdown to breakthrough stories where he knew that I would be able to spotlight the work that he has been doing in his kids' lives, whether the times have been easy or the times have been hard. So, it really has been quite a journey.
Well, it's something you've done incredibly well. You've excelled at, and I noticed from the moment we met each other, 12 or 13 years ago, you just had something special. You had a voice inside you. You had a passion behind everything that you did. And as someone who, for myself, I was on AM radio, live on literal radio, and where people were only listening in their cars and in their homes if they happened to listen to AM radio, and then going from that into podcasting and loving it and having a voice and the response, I knew that you had the voice, you had the message, you had the content. It's just whether or not you would actually pull the trigger. And I remember just talking with you multiple times and encouraging you and saying, look, you've got a voice, you've got a passion, you've got a message. Let's just go out and explore this thing. But yeah, I remember the pushback, and I remember I would say uncertainty. You agreed with everything that I said. It was just, well, I don't know how to do it. And even though, it was something that, like you said, when you don't know how to do things, sometimes you push back, but I'm glad you listened, and I'm glad you took on the challenge. And I'll never forget that walk that we were taking where it actually manifested and came to life.
Yeah, well, and I need to thank you too, because you did what all good mentors do. You didn't just tell me how to do it and how to get started. You pointed. You pointed in the direction of the right videos, the right podcasters, the people that I should be listening to, watching, to be able to get started and to figure it out more on my own, because you knew that if you did it for me, that wouldn't empower me. But that if you pointed me in the direction that I would absolutely be able to figure it out, and that would help grow me, right? That I would be able to then have that confidence to know that, yeah, I can do this thing. Plus, I got to tell you, I had one other thing that was necessary to be a good podcast host, and that is a little bit of crazy. So I've had fun with this show, and I've had just, amazing, amazing guests. Yeah, in the beginning, I have to tell you, getting guests, that was probably the most difficult thing in the beginning, just because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have the resources in the beginning. And so I was really just kind of looking out and watching and being very aware. It's like I had this spidey sense for a good story. When somebody would be sharing something on social media, I'd reach out to them and it's like, hey, it sounds like you've got a great story. Would you mind sharing it with me? Because I think it might be something I'd love to share with my tribe on my podcast. And so that was the way that I really populated these amazing shows early on. But then I got connected with a great resource that really had me just like I was swimming in the prospects for this amazing podcast for guests, because there are so many people out there, and maybe you're one of them that has just really found themselves in difficult circumstances. And maybe you just don't know how to get out. That's how these people were. That's how their stories were. And yet God moved in such a way. And most of them on this show will acknowledge that it was God moving in their lives to be able to help them see something a little bit different, to be able to change their perspective and maybe shift the way that they were thinking and just tweak the things that they had been doing that made all the difference in the world. And so, I mean, just to reiterate, the Your Blank What Now podcast is a tool for you. It is a resource for you when you get stuck in those moments to come back and listen and to hear what other people have done, hence giving you hope and a light at the end of the proverbial tunnel.
Right. So I do have a question for you.
Okay.
And I remember when we were in that decision-making process where you said, okay, I think I'll take a look at it. Maybe it's a possibility to do a podcast. And I remember sharing information with you on the resources that I used when I started my podcast, because AM radio to podcasting is a very different animal. And there's no producers in your own podcast except you, and what kind of equipment to have, because the radio station had all that equipment when I did my radio show. And looking at Pat Flynn and John Lee Dumas and Shanman 98 KUPD on-air personality. Shanman, thank you guys for the inspiration and
And the
helping me
guidance.
and the
Oh,
guidance and what microphone to use, what podcast recorder to use. Do you use your phone? Do you need a camera? All this stuff that goes along with that. And then sharing with you that information, from you digesting it to looking it over to saying, okay, I think I'll give it a shot. And then we went on that fateful walk that night, walking around our neighborhood. Tell the What Now tribe about that experience and what happened.
so we had just gotten done participating in, I think it was a 5 or maybe a 6-day Tony Robbins virtual event. And anytime you go to that type of a personal growth experience, because it is an experience, you get totally immersed, right? But you come out of it with an open mind, an open heart, and just really ready to receive whatever God has for you. And so we were on that walk and just I mean, we hadn't gotten very far, and all of a sudden, God just gave me this download. It's like, you need to be sharing the stories of my kids that have gone through difficult times. It's breakdown to breakthrough stories. Your Blank What Now is the name of your podcast. And then as we were walking, we started audio recording. After I shared this with you, we started audio recording all the different types of stories that could be potentially spotlights in this podcast. And so, I mean, we had, I don't know how many we came up with. I mean, probably close to 50 on that walk alone of what the potential episodes could be. And it just really went from there. And it really was just a matter of being open. Right. And so if you're finding yourself right now and you're closed and your heart's like not open to new opportunity or something like that, maybe that's part of your problem. Maybe you need to focus just on some personal growth. Maybe you need to listen to someone that's been there, done that. Maybe you need to go back and listen to some of these episodes, right? And get your heart opened up, because once you're open, ah, windows and doors will open up all around you. So yeah, that walk was very fateful. That was an amazing, amazing start to the show.
Well, I'll never forget it, because as we set out on that walk, I don't think we anticipated coming up with a podcast. It was just something, but I've never, prior to that, I had never experienced anything like that. And since, I've never experienced anything like that. It was almost like drinking from a fire hose. It's like just that's why we were on our phone. We had our phones with us. So we were audio taping and sending text messages to ourselves so we wouldn't forget what we were talking about. But you came up with the name, the approach, and all kinds of different episode content in that walk. And we, like you said, at least 50 points of things we were sending to ourselves. And it's like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And it was just the coolest thing. So by the time we got back, you had the name, you had the ideas, the breakdown to breakthrough stories. And then it was just kind of set out, let's just put the aesthetic behind it. Let's look at the cover art. Let's come up with the colors. Let's take the pictures. And obviously right behind us, I think it's really cool on the video. If you can see this, Marci's logo and the cover art for Your Blank What Now podcast is right there. And I remember all the different renditions of that and sending it out to the people that put that together. And when it finally came through and we made that out of it, you remember what it was that first mistake, the first take.
Well, before we get to that though, I just want to reframe one thing that you said. You said that I came up with it. I came up with the podcast name. Came up with the podcast premise. I came up with all these different things. It wasn't me. God gave me the information for this show. And that's why it was so easy. I mean, because when I sit there and I try to figure things out on my own, it's not that easy. I generally make it really hard. I overthink it and all those kinds of things. And so it was that easy for us that day because it was God downloads. It was completely God's doing that day. But yes, so go ahead and get back to that first mistake that we made with the Your Blank What Now podcast, our artwork.
Yeah. So as you guys, for those of you who've seen the video version, that cover art right there, that's not the original. That's the second rendition. Because when we got the original one back, and the kind of the tagline for your show was turning chaos into joy. And we realized that chaos was misspelled. And it was spelled CHOAS. So choas to to joy. Neither one of us caught it. The guy who made the cover art didn't catch it. The people that we had who made the graphic that we see behind us on the wall there didn't catch it. And then I think we were reading it, and when it was up on the wall, right where that one is, and like, oh, we got a misspelling.
No, that wasn't when we figured it out. No, it was up on the wall for a while and we just didn't because your brain sometimes. Yes. So I had this idea that I wanted to just be so grateful to my guests. And, for the first, gosh, I don't know how many of these I've sent out, almost all 100 of them. But I had mugs made. And if you watch this on YouTube, the Your Blank What Now YouTube channel, you'll see that I have a coffee cup that has my artwork on it. This is the old artwork. And it has like the different channels I can be found on and all that kind of stuff on there. And this one actually says it correctly because this is a second print because I got one for myself to use on all the episodes that said it correctly. But we ordered 100 of these mugs for me to be able to use as gifts. And we had actually made them to where you could use them for your show too, because it had both of our shows on there at that time. And so I ended up, and you were so great at this, because at first I was like, you have got to be freaking kidding me. We just spent all this money on 100 mugs and I was going to use these as gifts. I have 100 pieces of ceramic, whatever we're going to make out of these things. And you came up with this great idea. Do you want to share it?
Well, there's nothing we could really do except throw away 100 cups or laugh at ourselves and to say, look, you have the opportunity to be part of history. That these misprinted logos and a misspelling of the word, how awesome is that? And just made a fun thing out of it, made certificates of authenticity for the misprint and sent them out to your guests.
We numbered them.
Yep. And I think it went over well. People got a big kick out of it. But it's sometimes in the presence of something like that, you just got to laugh at yourself and move on. And it actually, I think it just brought a little humanness to the episode or to the show itself. And it's like, we are imperfect people. We've gone through our own breakdown to breakthrough stories. And as the host,
many of them,
and just make a funny thing out of it and just go with it.
Yeah.
I think it worked out well.
Yeah, it did. And that's a really good lesson for all of us is that when things happen in our lives, you can either just have it be sour and be a mess, or like they say, make lemonade out of it, right? Reframe it and create something amazing out of it. And so, yeah, I think that was a really great learning aspect for us as well. So, yeah, I'm glad we shared that.
Absolutely. So as this, I'm just going to call it a harvest, and so I'm just going to use kind of a farming analogy. So when from concept to conception to actually harvesting, so planting the seed in the ground, the original discussions we had, kind of throwing ideas back and forth where we were on that walk, and then by the time we got back, we had the concept. God gave us the downloads, and so we had the seed in the ground, and then it was just nurturing that idea from the cover art preparation to what kind of mics are we going to use. And we went through a couple different renditions and all of that. And then it's nurturing the seeds that are in the ground, giving it all the things that it needed. And then the harvest comes. Well, the harvest has been harvested. And now it's time to kind of close the chapter of this show to move on to greater chapters and new opportunities to plant new seeds and have new harvests. But in that situation, so in episode 1, when I was, kind of talking about the inception, or episode 0, I think it might have been, what is the idea? How did this come to be? And now episode 150, as you're kind of closing the curtain on this chapter of your life, God is taking you through, and with the Your Blank What Now podcast, what would you say is just maybe one of your proudest moments in the history, the 3-year history of this podcast? And what is it about podcasting itself now that you have become, in my opinion, one of the best podcasters? And I got to shed some light on you. Listening to your episode 1 to the most recent episode 149, where you and a guest, not counting this one because we're kind of interviewing here, but just the maturation process, the growth, the professionalism, at the world-class nature of the Your Blank What Now podcast, and you specifically as a podcast host. Now seeing we're tying a nice bow on this chapter of your life and what you've done with so many, over 140 something guests. Would you say are some of the moments you're most proud of in this entity, if you will, or this medium of podcasting? What about it? And what about it do you love the most? And what are some of your most proud moments?
Great question. Okay, so I would say on what I'm proud of is that I really did learn a lot in this process. I learned a lot about podcasting because I have been a one person show. So I've learned about how to make audiograms. I've learned how to make videograms. Learned how to really put all the episodes together and edit, and now video edit, and all kinds of different things that I've learned because of this show. And these are all things that I'm going to be able to take forward with me into the next season of my life, because this has been such a beautiful season. I mean, and some people might be thinking, it's like, well, why would you want to end it here? And the reason that is because, I just have clarity that when it started, it had a specific time that it needed to run. And I needed to provide content that would be able to be available to people anytime. And that having the opportunity to learn how to gather guests too, and how to talk to them, and how to figure out whether or not we're a good fit, as well as getting people on board to understand the power of vulnerability. Because I truly believe that a lot of the people that I interviewed, they were a bit afraid to share their stories in the way that I was asking them to share them. But once I helped them understand that vulnerability is a superpower, and that it can really help connect yourself with someone else so much faster than anything else can. Because as soon as someone hears your story and they resonate, they see themselves in what you've gone through, that cuts down some time into that know, like, and trust factor. And so if you're somebody that's in business, or you're trying to coach people or have people come to you for help, it's so important for people to get to know you, decide they like you, and whether or not they trust you at a pretty quick rate. And vulnerability really helps you do that. So I'm really quite happy that I was able to help others realize that, and then help them have content that they can share that is evergreen, meaning that's available all of the time, to be able to cut down that time in creating that connection with people. And then on top of that, I just have so much gratitude so much gratitude that they would be willing to trust me with their story and helping to share it. And I mean, because some of these have been such deep sorrows and big pains and journeys of just hurt, whether it's physical experiences they've gone through, or it's losses of those people that they love the most. It's my honor, and I feel so privileged to have been trusted with these stories and really with the hearts of the people that carry them around. And then also trusted by each one of you to be able to bring you content that could add value to your life and hopefully make a difference. So I would say that my favorite has been the stories, because I've said this multiple times on this show and I'm saying it elsewhere now as well, is that, stories save lives. I truly believe that. Your story that you've gone through, whether you think it's important or not, it can help someone else figure out what's going on in their life and lead them to a solution to their pains. So don't ever think that your story is too small to share it, because it's not. It is not.
Absolutely great word. And just as a listener and as I would say a fan of the Your Blank What Now podcast, listening to you and how many of your guests had been on multiple podcasts before, had shared their stories before openly, vulnerably, and were even seasoned professionals in sharing their stories. How many of those people said, "Wow, Marci, I've never been asked a question like that, or I've never been asked that question in such a meaningful, deep way." And then on the other side of that, how people who've never been a podcast guest before and actually had never even told their story publicly and were very apprehensive and guarded about even doing so. But to your point, that they felt that they knew you, they liked you, they trusted you, because I loved your approach of having a about a 30-minute, about pre-recording episode just to see, one, is your story, does it fit my show? Are we compatible as host and guest? And then this is what I know, kind of how I see. And then you came up with, you and the collaboration with you and your guest coming up with the name of their episode. So it's something that they could be behind, that they could feel, even though they're scared and maybe even apprehensive and about being vulnerable, that it was their story to tell. And it was just flawlessly done, in my opinion, again, as an observer and a consumer and just listener of the Your Blank What Now podcast. But for those of you who are listening, if you are maybe an aspiring podcaster and you don't know whether the podcasting format is for you, I would encourage you to go back and listen to as many of these episodes as possible, because it's what happens when the mic is on and when the record button, when Marci hits the record button and captures that timeless moment, whether it's a breakdown to breakthrough story, which is kind of the theme of your podcast. And when I would tell people about it, I would say it's like breakdown to breakthrough stories, or kind of tragedy to triumph. And then even when I remember using from bondage to breakout. And because there was some people that had spiritual oppression, there was some people that were literally pronounced dead and came back to life. There was people that had their worst absolute moment ever on planet Earth that they vulnerably shared with you and the What Now tribe. And again, just kudos to you, Marci. You did it wonderfully. You did it professionally with tact, with compassion. And it was just an absolute honor and privilege to, one, watch you launch this podcast, but to watch you grow as a podcast host, watch your listenership expand, and watch how people would talk about what it was like being a guest on your show, which kind of made other people want to be guests on your show. And so congratulations to you. It was a world-class effort. You're a world-class podcaster. And I just loved listening to the stories that you allowed people to tell in a tactful way that blessed them, blessed the listeners, and gave them comfort and helped them. I guess this is the best way to frame it, help them find their voice on your podcast. And I witnessed that many, many times. So great job.
Thank you. It was fun having, I mean, I had some people on the show that have been interviewed in big places, on big talk shows by big talk show hosts, and having them at the end of it say, it's like, I was interviewed by this guy, his initials JK, and you're better. you are a better interviewer and this was a much more fun conversation. And so, yeah, those were really fun times too. Thank you for reminding me of that. Yet you've had a lot of experience with the show. I'm kind of turning on you. I'm becoming the interviewer here for just a second because I have a question for you. I mean, obviously you've been here from that since that walk, since the very first moment. And yet you've also, I mean, you've listened to a lot of the episodes. You have coached me in the podcast realm. You have also been interviewed for 2 episodes on the show. It's like, what has your experience been just with the show in general and having seen it from all different angles?
Well, I think it's a great tool for people, and ultimately, the greatest benefit and blessing, I think, is to the listeners, because so many people walk through life, and whatever tragedy they're experiencing, or whatever lull in their life, or whatever rock bottom they're feeling, oftentimes they feel alone. And it's in the very opening of every one of your episodes that, if you're feeling this way, you can do this, because these are just stories of people that have been where you are, and helping people, one, come to grips with what they're going through, two, to be able to listen to the breakdown to breakthrough stories of people that maybe it might not be their exact situation, and others it was their exact situation that someone else moved through and was victorious on the other side. But the strength and the courage and the stick to itiveness that it gave people permission to, if they listened to it with the right headspace. But also being a guest and help. I mean, on your show, I told a story I'd never previously told publicly, and it just gave me the vulnerability, but also I felt trusted by you. I felt trust in you, and I felt that this would probably set some people free from the guilt that I carried around because I didn't want to carry it anymore. And it was an interesting topic for me, but you were a master in the questions, and I want to thank you for offering to be a guest, because I never would have done it had you not prompted me. But just to watch how that happened and listening to your guests get to that very same conclusion, to go from fearfulness and apprehension to being incredibly grateful to you to help them tell their story. And then even the follow-up that they were giving you that still happens to this day. People that saying, because of you, Marci, I turned a corner in life and I have you to thank. And that's the biggest blessing you could probably ever ask for your podcast. And that's whether it was one season, one episode, or 3 seasons and 150 episodes, it achieved its mark. And you did a great job on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So what else have you got for me?
So with regard to podcasting, I encouraged you initially, and I knew you had a voice in you, and I knew you had a story to tell. But now that you're on this side of this, and like I said, we're kind of wrapping this up with a nice bow. What about the podcast platform and the fact that this is on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts, and all the other places where podcasts live? Um, Even though you may not be recording any more episodes, what would you say is the lasting legacy that you want your podcast to carry moving forward for you?
That even though the podcast will not be uploading new contents under the Your Blank What Now podcast, that it is always there, that you can find it. It will be living on, that you can find it on all of those podcast platforms. You can find it on YouTube. It's the at Your Blank What Now. That's how you get it, at Your Blank What Now, just without the apostrophe in your. And you can go and you can watch these episodes. I am currently still uploading all of the old ones, yet all of the new ones have been being uploaded and they are available there that you can go. And whether it's at a time that you just need to be lifted up and you remembered an episode that just really brought you some comfort and some encouragement, go listen again or go watch it, because if you listened initially, when you watch it, you'll get even more out of it because people's emotions transfer differently, whether you're watching them or you're just listening to them, right? And then, of course, not only for yourself, but keep it in mind for those people that you come across that are going to be struggling, because that's what life is all about, is we all have ups and downs. And part of the reason why we're here together is to be able to help each other out when the times are difficult. So just keep in mind that this is also a resource that you can share with other people to be able to help them out when they're going through struggles and difficulties.
Absolutely. Well, for someone who's become a master at spinning plates, and you're just putting this plate down for the time being,
Susan.
the season, and who knows how long that season's gonna be. But it's like I said, you are not one that is has a lack of things to do in your life. You've got some great callings, some great purposes, and you are, I would say, you're in the mission field right now. You are being trained for bigger things, for greater things, for more impactful things. What's next for Marcy Nettles as you put this last 150th episode down? What's next for you?
Well, first, I am just so honored that I had, first of all, the opportunity to interview 10 different ladies on this show about breast implant illness and the dangers of breast implants, including cancers that can come from breast implants. And so on October 1st, I have my first book that is going to be published. I'm going to be a published author, guys, not just a podcaster, but now a published author, which I would have never, ever have done without this show as well. And so this first book is called The Toxic Truth, which I wish I had one right here. I'm like, I should have a book here, right? Um, but but The Toxic Truth, and it is the compilation of 11 women that share their real stories about breast implant illness. If you don't know what that is, don't worry, neither did I, even though I felt like I was dying. And it came to be the cause was my breast implants. And so this book, it will be available October 1st, which is just 7 days from the recording of this episode, 6 days from the day that it drops. And it is also going to be the first day of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So please support, go out there to Amazon and pick up your copy of The Toxic Truth. And I'll make sure that it is in the show notes as well, because I would love your support with that, as well as helping to bring awareness to women that you care about, maybe yourself, and maybe you guys that really love girls that have boobs, you should read it too, because if you're encouraging them to get implants, you need to know what the risks are. And that's what it's all about, is just bringing awareness, not telling you you have to do one thing or another. But that's one of the big things that I have on my plate right now, that I'm launching October 1st. My first book will be published. It will be on Amazon, and it will be in paperback and hardcover. So super excited about that. And then on top of that, I don't know why I decided to do both of these things in the same month, but we have a really big launch going on in our international business too. We have a health and wellness business. And on October 11th, we are launching a naturally derived GLP-1 activation system, which is all about weight loss. And we are going to be disrupting the whole weight loss industry with this launch. So we're super excited about that, giving people the natural ability to get back in touch with their willpower and being able to make better decisions that lead to long-term weight loss and weight management as part of a lifestyle. So we've got that going on, because we definitely want to be present and available and prepared to help our team internationally with this launch. And then the third thing that I have going on, and I mean, there's more on top of it, but these are the three big
Yeah.
things. The third thing I have going on is I am continuing my schooling for my master's degree in biblical counseling. So my husband and I, this guy right here, we initially went to one of the pastors at our church because I felt like I just didn't have quite the foundation that I needed to have to be who I needed to be the best leader and to be as Christ-like as I possibly could in leading people. And so we went together and we talked with him, and he gave us the opportunity to go through the chaplain class at our church. So we did that. And then they recognized us as chaplains to the business mountain, because we are the church. Wherever we go, we are the church. Church is not just inside of a building. And so this really gave us some better foundation. And then we continued with our coursework and with becoming more educated and getting that foundation even stronger in Christ. And then they recognized us as apostles, workplace apostles. And now going to school for my master's degree in biblical counseling, it is all so that I can have the right heart, the right understanding, the right motives, the right
Mhm.
tools,
So,
many in my toolbox, that are all God-centered, biblical-centered, to be able to help people as I come across them. And so I'm in my second year now. I will graduate from this program in 2026, mid-year 2026. I will be graduating from that with my master's degree. And so I really anticipate guys, I'll be back with another show. I'm not sure what type of show it will be yet. I don't know if it will be a regular podcast like this one has been, or if it will be a vodcast is something I've learned about now that it's just pure video. There's all kinds of different options, and I'm sure that in the next 2 years, different things will be popping up. But I know that I will be coming back with another show, probably in the fall of 2026. And I hope that you will all, find me and follow me and keep up with me between now and then, and that we can develop our relationship and I can be there for you. How you guys have really been there for me, because I am so grateful for each one of you, the members of the What Now tribe, for being so supportive, for showing up, for listening, for participating, and for encouraging me along the way. I just, thank you for being the best part of the Your Blank What Now podcast. I appreciate you.
So good. And with regard to the Toxic Truth book,
Mm.
and breast implant illness, just as a concept, as an idea, I remember the journey that we were on trying to figure out what was going on in your body. And I remember, I'll never forget. And this is the hardest part for me as a doctor, as a chiropractor, trying everything that I had, using every tool in my tool belt to maybe make some minor help with you, but not alleviating the main things you were going through, and using people in my sphere of influence, other doctors and other specialists, and getting different tests. And I remember the day you said, I feel like I'm dying. And we went and had a full body cancer test done on you. And just to come back with answers that you're incredibly healthy, there's no sign of cancer, everything is great, which was great news, but exactly the opposite of what you wanted to hear, because you wanted the reason. Tell me, why am I feeling this way? Tell me, why is this pain not going away? Tell me why, or all the other things health challenges that you were having. And we never got any answers. And it was just getting incredibly more and more frustrated. And then, as fate would have it, God is so good. You listened to an episode on, what was the name of that platform?
Of course, you're going to
I
ask me
can't
that
even
now.
think of it now. But anyway,
Dang it. It's like
I'll think of it in a
a
second.
live
It was like
podcast platform.
yeah, I'll
Starts with
think
a
of it here.
C.
Whatever. I'll think of it here. But you came to me and you said, what do you know about breast implant illness? And well, just by the name, I can surmise what it is, but I literally know nothing about implant illness. And then you started diving deep into it and you heard from the doctors who that's what their specialty was, and doctors, plastic surgeons that actually specialize in removing breast implants, who had formerly been specialists of putting them in. And then once they understood the toxic nature of it, and it just opened up both of our eyes, and scheduled the surgery, went in, had them removed, and your life literally changed. Literally the same day, within hours of having your breast implants removed, I saw changes in you, from your eyes, the redness that you had for years, to the inflammation you had in your body, to the pain syndromes. Even when you're drugged out, coming out of it and the pain wore off, you had less pain. You were able to literally stand up by yourself, where you hadn't been able to do that in months, maybe even years, without pushing on your knees to push yourself up. And then that cause that you went on, it's like, I've got to tell everybody about this. And it literally became a cause within a cause. And you interviewed 10 additional women on their experience, and now it's turned into this book. So I wanted to give that backstory, because with the Your Blank What Now podcast, which turned into your own journey through breast implant illness, or BII, with 10 other women, which now has culminated in the Toxic Truth, the book that you've got forthcoming in a little more than a week now. I think the timing was awesome, that it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and your book is going to drop on October 1st. But then also your biblical counseling, and becoming having a master's degree in biblical counseling. It's all this golden thread woven through all of those things, and including our international business. We're helping people with their weight. It's the breakdown to breakthrough stories, just in a different capacity, in a different mode, same principle, but a different tool, a different cause, a different platform, but the same wielder of that tool. So you are just taking your ability to help people tell their breakdown to breakthrough stories, or co-author their breakdown to breakthrough stories now, and losing weight, empowering them with breast implant illness, and empowering them with losing weight. And then also, what's going to come next with your biblical counseling, your future clients that you're just going to help completely transform their lives. So you are being used mightily, Marci, by the Lord, and by the Holy Spirit, in helping your natural talents become more and more developed, to go out and be more and more specialized in helping people with their breakdown to breakthrough stories and helping them tell them and helping them find victory at the end. So I'm excited for what's coming. Not just
Thank
because
you.
I'm your husband and I'm watching it happen in our home, but just watching you become a greater and greater resource for the Lord and to help people find out who they were supposed to be and helping them get there.
Thank you so much for all of that because it really is a journey. Each one of us are on that journey. We're on this journey of life where we will have the opportunity to break down. And if we choose to take the sour side of it and stick with lemons, then things will be difficult and they will be hard. Or if we choose to take one day at a time, one step at a time, and do what we need to do to maybe add those extra ingredients, whether it's better relationships, it's better mindset, it's learning more about Jesus and really what the meaning behind being here really is. Whatever it is, that extra ingredient that you need to add to your lemons to get your lemonade, I would just say start today. Just take one step at a time. Don't think that it's something that you have to arrive at immediately because we haven't arrived. We won't arrive until we arrive back up in heaven, right? Until this life is over, will we have arrived because life is not about arriving. Life is about experiencing it in such a way that we learn from the things that we go through and we choose to take those opportunities and become someone that can reach out and help someone else move forward. And so that's where I see all of my life and that string that you've been talking about interwoven, how it all connects together is that it is. And it's so interesting too, because I mean, learning about breast implant illness of February of 2021, explanting in May of 2021, learning that I'm going to have a podcast because God told me in July of 2021, and having the first episode drop September 1st of 2021. That is definitely an orchestration that only God could do. And I want everybody that is listening or that will ever listen, thank you for being part of the tribe. And just know that the work that God has been doing in my life, He is doing in yours too. You just don't see it yet. And so draw near to Him so that your vision is cleared, so that you can see exactly what God is doing in your life and in the lives of those people around you, because He will not do for one and not do for another. Whatever He has done for me or for Dondee or anyone else that you know that you think has got it good, He wants to do that for you too. Just say, okay, God, it's your turn. I give it to you.
Yeah, just surrender and say, okay, showing up for duty because he'll chase you down.
Yep, he will. You know what
chase
I
you
love about what just went off? That alarm that just went off on his phone right now. Let me see it so I can show it to the people that are going to be watching on YouTube. Do you see what time it is? Well, first of all, see that picture? That would be me. But do you see what time it is on there? 143. That stands for I love you. He has an alarm on his phone so that he tells me every day at 143 that he loves me. So I love you.
Sorry I didn't turn that off,
It's
but it was a
okay.
good story to tell.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, guys, we
But
have
I was making a point, and sorry that the alarm kind of interrupted my flow there. But
distracted.
um, one, if you are catching this episode, which is the final episode, and you've never heard any of the previous 149 episodes, I would invite you to go listen to as many as possible. You can find it on Spotify, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, you can find it on everywhere that hosts podcasts,
Even Amazon.
and even Amazon and YouTube, as Marci said, and just look at the topics, because some of them, if you're hearing this right now, it's not an accident. This is, consider it fate, because there's a very strong possibility and even probability that of the 150 episodes, you're going to find the one that is going to allow you to break free where you thought you were in bondage. It's the worst moment you could ever expect, and you don't know how you're going to get out of it. This podcast was anointed by God. It was created for the very specific purpose to help people with breakdown stories break through and tell them publicly to give other people permission. So consider it no accident that you're listening to this episode, whether you've heard many before, this is your first one. And I would encourage you now to follow Marci. Marci Nettles. Follow her on her YouTube channel. Follow her on social media, on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, because she's got a story to tell, and she's being used mightily by God. And it just hit me. So that chat room you were in is called Clubhouse.
Yes, it
So
was.
Clubhouse was the name of the app that you were on when you heard BII for the first time. I'm glad I remembered it because I definitely want to give them a shout out because that app changed our lives, and your life specifically, and so
I'm
many
not so
others.
sure I've been on it since.
Yeah, and so many others as a result of the Toxic Truth book. But I want to say that I'm grateful that you listened, Marci, and that you took the chance to becoming a podcaster because it's been an incredibly great journey for me to watch you blossom as a podcast host, just being used by God to give yourself the what if. You asked, what if what he's saying is right? What if there's people that could be blessed by me finding my voice and get over my insecurity about not being able to do that, not having any knowledge of how to do this. I've never done it before. But thank you for your boldness and thank you for your willingness. And one of the things I learned about you, Marci, and I love it, is that there's these three words kind of surmise you: no lag time. When you get your mind on something, when you finally accept that there's no lag time, that you just go, you are a manifester of manifestation and you go make it happen. And you always have and you always will. And as a result of that, people are blessed mightily. So I just want to say, as a fan, as a listener, as somebody that has watched you grow, I'm so blessed and honored to be part of this, whatever small part I played in encouraging you to do this. But the Your Blank What Now podcast and the tribe and the many thousands and possibly even millions of people that are going to hear these episodes who have listened and will listen in the future, you're going to be blessed because Marci's got a gift. And stay tuned for the Toxic Truth. Stay tuned for the launch of the weight loss product that we're about. Stay tuned for Marci's quest and receiving of a master's degree in biblical counseling. And then stay tuned for the new show that'll come out in 2026, and only God knows what it's going to be. But one thing I know about God and Marci, when they come up to with something, it blesses a lot of people and it's done right, because no lag time is something that Marci doesn't believe in. And so you just go do it. So thank you for the honor, Marci. And just, I guess, in closing thoughts, what are you most proud of about this show?
All of it. I just being able to connect with the people and to be able to share their stories. That's the thing that I am most proud about, is being able to step outside of my own comfort zone and being able to do something new. And I just have to say, from your mouth to God's ears on what you just said, because I am his servant and it's like, here I am, Lord, use me, right? Because I want to be able to be used in a way that will impact so many people's lives for the better in so many different things, right? So many different things. So what now, tribe? We're getting ready to sign off here for the final time of the Your Blank What Now show. And I want you to know that you can find me at Marci Nettles on just about every one of the social media platforms. You can also find me at marcinettles.com, which, by the way, if you're thinking about doing a podcast yourself, go to marcinettles.com underneath my favorites, and you'll be able to see our favorite podcasting information and the tools that we use, the different mics, the different headsets, all the different stuff that we have been using for this show and also for other shows that we've had before. And you can also see and get more information on the Toxic Truth there, as well as just follow up with me and what I'm going on. You can subscribe there. And as I prepare to start up a new newsletter, we will keep in contact. Not too much, probably once a month, but just go and subscribe, because I would love to stay in contact and to just be able to let you know what's coming next, as well as I truly believe that this book, you should pick one up for yourself and one for a friend, because you will come across someone that you're going to want to share it with, and you won't necessarily want to give up your copy. So you best well just pick up two on October 1st when it launches, The Toxic Truth. So again, marcinettles.com or at Marci Nettles on all the platforms. So I just want to say this final thing. You truly have been the best part of the Your Blank What Now podcast. And I don't just say that to say it. I say it because in my heart right now, I am so grateful to you. I'm grateful that you have gone on this journey with me. And I am grateful to know that you will be utilizing these tools moving forward, whether it's for yourself or for others. I know there's so many of you out there that are just like me, that are searching for your purpose and wanting to be able to help more people. This is a great place to start. And I'm so glad that you've been on this journey with me. So thank you, What Now Tribe. And this is Marci Nettles signing off for the final episode of the Your Blank What Now podcast. Thank you for being here.